Hello, gentlemen.
What's up?
What's El Ducci there holding behind his face? Hello, gentlemen.
What's up?
Somebody's got their speakers still on.
Okay, we'll fix that.
Hey, Nate, how you doing?
Not bad. How about yourself, Dan?
Pretty good, man. I like the beard. It's very Old Testament.
Thank you.
The beard looks fabulous.
The wife likes it, and that's all that matters.
That's right, sir.
There you go. What do your kids think of it, though?
They pull it, and it hurts. Even the baby. Little 2-month-old baby grabbing a hold and yanking as hard as she can, giggling the whole time. Lovely.
Unbelievable. All right, guys.
Well, I'll tell you this. If you shave it off before they're like the age of 13 or 14, it will terrify them.
Well, right now it's keeping me in a happy state in the bedroom, so it stays.
Hey.
It gets bigger.
I hope you meant the beard.
There you go.
I feel like Jim from The Office.
I love
Just gonna look right into the camera. Good morning.
Good
Hi.
morning. gentlemen.
Good morning.
All right.
Well, you're like 17 hours ahead of us, aren't you, Brad?
I am. I'm in the future.
How's our day looking?
Tomorrow's gonna suck.
Didn't you guys just get hit with both a typhoon and an earthquake?
I got hit with a typhoon and an earthquake and a tornado. Actually, we got hit as well.
The trifecta.
So the trifecta.
Like,
That's right. Yep.
Are you close to Chiba?
No, I'm nowhere near it. Actually, I'm way down south in Kyushu. I live in kind of a surf town, so it's way more like Magnum PI here than Blade Runner. So, you go up north, and that's kind of like the large cities, Osaka and Tokyo, and they got hit real bad. But usually we get hit with typhoons, and we usually get 4 or 5 typhoons per year.
Well, that's a lovely place to live.
It is a great place to live. Yeah, it's beautiful. I live right next to the beach. There's palm trees. It's a lot of fun. There's lots of surfers out this morning.
And
It's real crowded there, though, right?
Well,
no, they're not really at all. I mean, I guess in the larger cities, sure, it's quite crowded. But I live in quite a rural area, so there's not many people. The city I live in is probably about 100,000 or 120,000 people. Pretty small, pretty rural.
I never got to go there. I know we've got a big major marine base there, but I never got deployed there. So I don't know if you're near that or anything.
Near Okinawa, is that what you're talking about?
I guess that's where it is. I'm not sure. Like I said,
right,
I know
there's
we've
the
got
Futenma base. Yeah, right. So there's the Futenma base. Yeah, that's down south. That's about an hour's flight from here. So we're kind of just north of Okinawa, I guess, about there.
Yeah, it is Okinawa where it is. Okay.
And Brad, have you assimilated enough that you joined the yearly miso making of the town?
The yearly... I get in on the mochi festival where they throw out huge bags of mochi, and also the fire festival where you have this rope, and people light it. This rope, they douse it in gasoline, and then they set it on fire, and they throw it, have it around their head like a lasso, and so you have this like ropey fire being flung because obviously the rope frays and breaks, so you get like some people end up on fire during this festival.
Sounds like something rednecks do.
And are you close?
It is.
Are you close to where they do the penis festival?
Oh yeah,
no, that's way up north.
Okay, sorry.
Well, that's what I want to go for, one of those like festivals. I figure, as the American, you kind of stand out a little bit, Like, yeah, big American here, lady, just putting it out there.
I lived in Yokosuka for 3 years, and I never went to the penis festival. Okay, so
really, but you know what? You know about it.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Japan is a very interesting country. I enjoyed living there. I really did. I hated leaving, but yeah, it was good time. So I can understand why Brad decides to remain living there.
It's full of Japanese women.
You know, is Elise listening to this, Nate?
What's that?
Is Elise listening to this?
No, she's upstairs putting against the bed.
Yeah, I'm sure she is.
Yes. My tone will dramatically change when she's closer.
She'll go back and watch later.
Yeah, we'll send her a link.
No, don't do that.
All right, guys, I want to start off with a little bit of the news, okay? First thing everyone wants to know is what's going on with the Kickstarters. Okay, we have some images. We're being told, and again, I'm saying we should be on a boat Thursday or Friday. Once I get the name of the boat, I will put the boat and the tracking link on to the website so you can see where it's going. The games are going to be going from multiple places from Japan. We have I think it's Happy Shops in Europe. I don't know the other ones, but there's one for Asia, one for Australia and New Zealand, and of course us here in the States. And I think there's actually one in Canada too. But once I get those and I have the ships, I will let everyone know. Here's some pictures we got from China today. It's just a few counters for World at War 85.
Yeah.
And here's some boxes.
Yeah, just a few.
Okay, you can see a Space Infantry box there, and I guess Atlantic Storm. I have no idea what's back there, further back, guys. Here is the deck
solo deck
for the Solitaire Assistant. So there you go there. In other news, I've been told, I think Roy is on the chat, that his latest edition of War Diary is now shipped to all the customers and is available, will be available on Lock and Load for purchase after Dan confirms that for me. Oh, it's not Dan, Roy, please. And in completely unrelated news, I don't know if any of you guys read this, but they're making a new, what I guess Band of Heroes follow-up. It's going to be on the mighty 8th Air Force bomb in Germany. And it's going to be going to Apple TV. Do you guys have you guys all watched the Banner Brothers and the ones for the Pacific? I forget what the Pacific one was titled.
Yep, the Pacific.
It was called the Pacific.
Well, that was
just the Pacific.
overly exciting name.
Yeah, the first time I saw Band of Brothers, I was actually deployed.
Really?
Yeah. Some guy had brought a laptop. He had downloaded the whole series on there, and we were sitting around watching it. It was back in 2003.
Yeah. Oh, and I wore this shirt for those who can see it. It's in memory of Brad being here online. Okay. And and the big news is people are going to ask why. We're going to be doing the Lock and Load sale sometime this week.
Woohoo!
Okay? It will end in November. And the reason is we normally do it the week of Thanksgiving and it goes into December. But the problem is this year it's going to be basically the 29th and 30th, and then you're into December. And after kind of like the second week, give or take a day, you almost have an impossible, shipping requirement. So we're going to start off a little bit earlier, and we'll post when that's live, but just it's coming.
Yeah, I was going to say that's not going to affect your Kickstarter, is it? Like the shipping on that?
No,
like the sale.
Honestly, the shipping department. We have a warehouse here in Pueblo, and the lady who runs it, her name is Rebecca. She's got a whole screw of people and a whole bunch of boxes. Everything's ready to go. Gotta wait for the games to show.
I thought that's what you had kids for, free labor.
Yeah, but some of them went to college. I'm really missing Maddie and Patrick. They did a great job, but they'll be home for Christmas, and we plan to play some more games. Okay, before we go on to the roast of Brad, what have you any exciting news you want to talk about, Nate? Is your wife pregnant again? Anything like that?
No, but she wants to be. Again, that's why I got the beard. Much power comes from the beard.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, that's why I missed your last I'm not gonna go there. She's gonna kill me. Let's just say I was preoccupied the last time you had your show going on. In gaming news, I will have some prototype stuff up very soon. I've got DVG's Valkyrie, and I've got it on the table. I've been playing it, going over it. So you guys can expect to see that in the next few days. They'll link to it in their Kickstarter as well. So that's coming. I've got something else. Agents of Mayhem obviously just got here, so I will be covering that at some point. And then another game called Core Space I'll be covering as well. So that's the big stuff coming from Gimpy in the near future, as well as starting the Space Infantry tutorial bootcamp videos.
Ah, okay. And all right, Dan, I guess we'll go to you. Oh, yes, we do. I took Dan off the podcast like that.
What do you want me to say?
I don't know. Any news on your upcoming episode? Anything?
Well, I'm planning on doing a lock and load holiday special.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What is a lock and load holiday special?
Well, we'll see.
Is it like the Star Wars holiday special?
Well, it's like, I want to do it like, and I hope I succeed in this because as we all know, it takes time to film and edit and blah, 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 blah. So I want to do it like a variety show like Lawrence Welk.
And the one and the two.
And I'm gonna have okay, I might as well say it. I'm gonna have Stuka Joe playing the piano, really cheesy Spanish songs. I actually have a mariachi band who's gonna send me stuff. I swear to God, I have a big band. I forget the guy's name. Russell. He runs a con. Oh my God, I forgot. Sorry, the guy's gonna kill me. And PressCon. Is it PressCon? Whatever. And so I want to do it really cheesy. I want to do it really cheesy, and I want to focus on the lock and load stuff and have fun with it, And I even have a Japanese lady playing the mouth keyboard.
The flute?
No, it's called a mouth keyboard.
Okay. Well, we're going to move right along to Devin here. Devin.
How you doing, guys?
I can see the Rating Bureau coming in to talk to me about this episode.
Well, what we got coming up on the channel at the original Grognard, I think everybody here probably already knows me. I pontificate on that enough. We're going to be continuing our playthrough and finishing up the solitaire game that I've been playing of Silverton. I know, Heresy. It's not a war game, but it is a really fun solitaire game, and I still got to use those strategic brain cells, the few that I have left. After that, I never know from game to game. I'll come up with something. On the design front, Pegasus Bridge is starting to come along. I think we'll be able to do a real good job with Pegasus Bridge. It's going to be a low counter sheet count. There wasn't a lot of units on either side there, and I got some ideas in mind that I think people will really, really enjoy.
Okay, great. All right, guys, we're going to take a few questions, if there are any, from the public. I don't know who some of these are addressed to. Let's see. Okay, I don't know who this is to. Ronnie, can you give me a status on Stalingrad? What's Stalingrad? If you're talking about the one for Nations at War, Sean is working on it, but it is going slow. Point Blank is going to be, I'm going to say, probably taking the lead on his design time. Okay. And let me see. Oh, Robert. Dan, are you wearing a Michigan shirt? Because
Harold Buchanan's going to kill me, man.
Okay, listen. I'll cut you off. Run, change your shirt. We'll put you back on.
Okay, no, I'll do that. I'll come back.
Okay, there we go, guys. He thinks he's getting back on. No.
The joke's on you. He's coming back with no shirt on.
Okay, and then
So Ronnie was confirming the Stalingrad status for Nations at War.
Okay, that's good. All right, then he's working on, just so you know, the upcoming events we're going to have. Trying to do multiple things. Let me go through some of the stuff that I know is coming up. Mark Fairchild, he's running an event for World at War 85. It's with miniatures. I know, Devin, you're going, I believe.
Yes, I will be there, and Keith and Jeff will also be there. He does plan on having the entire. Actually, I was talking to Mark last night. The entire Fulda Gap map is done, ready to be played out in miniature. He's got it all printed out. Yeah, it is. He's been working on this for like 4 months, and he is going to have the entire Frankfurt map. And he's got it all printed out. It's all painted up. He's got all the miniatures. We're planning on running that real big. I've got a couple of my demonstration copies that I'm going to be bringing with me. So we're going to have a couple smaller games broken off all over the place. We got about 12 of us so far. We're looking to try to get upwards of 20. Really look, if you're in the Atlanta area, really would suggest going for it. Breakfasts and lunches are going to be catered, so you don't have to worry about that. It's a nice little small venue, just a few of us. So if you're in the Atlanta, really get a hold of Mark Faircloth, right there, the email address right there to get a hold of him. And I look forward to seeing you there.
I believe also it's a free event. I think Mark.
It is a free event. Yes, completely free.
Okay.
And what kind of miniatures is he using for that?
I'm sorry, what?
What kind of miniatures is he using to represent all the different units?
10 millimeter. He's got the GHQ miniatures. Everything that GHQ has done for Modern Warfare, he's picked up and he's been collecting over the years. So it's all 265th scale, 10 millimeter, and he's got them all painted up. If you look back on the Facebook page, he's done a lot. He's done about 2 or 3 months ago. He did a lot of battle report. Well, not a lot, but he's done some battle reports. So there's some really good pictures on the Facebook group about that. So yeah, go check it out. We're looking forward to having being a really great time. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be recording. I'm going to be live streaming. I'm going to be taking pictures. I'm going to have a ton of stuff while we're there. And this is going to be in the first week in November and when I get back.
Man, I wish you guys were closer, man. I would so go to that. Just see it all done in miniatures. It would be awesome.
I'm on warehouse duty. I'm not allowed to go. All right.
There you go, Dan.
All right. So as you can know, our special guest, for lack of that, and you can use the word special any way you like, is author and designer Brad Smith. I've been really, I will say, as the publisher of his book series with us, I've really been thrilled, blessed, and by his talents. And I think you're going to find this book series to be really just outstanding. You want to start with anything in general, Brad?
No, not at all. Fire away. Go ahead. Any questions?
Okay. I'm going to just see if there's any more questions. Thank you, Ron. Yes, I know that's my job.
Someone said Big Matt or 40 Little Boards. Facebook user.
Yeah, here's the question right there. Oop, sorry. Damn it. Okay.
Brad.
Yep.
Brad.
Yeah.
Do you write any erotica?
Burp.
No.
What? 50 Shades of the Third World War.
You know, I mean,
that's our first question. Okay. I gotta go, guys.
All right.
I guess I'm not sure how to answer that.
Well, you want to make money, don't you?
It should be no. Okay. Should be no. Just for any of those who are guessing, the answer should be no.
I'll just be under the table if you need me. Okay.
Yeah.
There's a comment that says,
yeah, I think Mark found your book there, Brad.
Debbie does fifth grade. Yeah, you're right. That's right. I forgot about that one. That's right.
The audiobooks are all done with cats.
Okay, I got a serious question for you, Brad.
Ronnie.
Thank you.
Just for my own personal curiosity, when you're doing this, since it's like military history and that type stuff, right? Do you take and like draw from real world events and then kind of incorporate that into like a fiction, or do you just all off the top of your head, whatever you can come up with?
I try my best to try to make it authentic, and I try my best to do a lot of research into a lot of it. So I base it on, it's based on something. But yeah, on the other hand, there is that part of yourself that's kind of, it's purely fiction. So it's just your imagination is kind of mixing in with the research. I don't know. It's tough, when you write this kind of stuff, it is so grounded in the real world, and there are so many people with direct experience in, for example, who've been in tank companies or been infantry. And, as soon as the challenge for any writer when you're writing military fiction is that as soon as you go off of FM 100 or whatever, as soon as you go off of the dry factual basics, you've got people willing to jump in and say, well, that would never happen. And you're like, well, it could, it might happen. It could happen this way.
Or the people that get
attentive
and say, no, the radio wasn't here in the tank. It was on the right side, not the left side.
You're right.
The small details.
Right, exactly. That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I deal with similar with, my own stuff. So I was just curious if you say, to hell with it. I'm just going to come up with it all off the top of my head, or if you kind of look into the theory crafting a lot of people have done for that time period of what could have happened or who would win in this scenario, stuff like that.
Well, yeah, there is that kind of conflicting demand, because there is kind of obviously, you kind of listen to a lot of people who were deployed around that time. And, I've seen comments of like, the Soviets would have rolled us up very quickly, 2 or 3 days, they would have been at the Rhine. And then you hear from other people who are like, no, I think we had a good chance of, at least fending them off for a little while. So you kind of wonder, like, obviously you're dealing in hypotheticals, so you can never know the answer to that question. So in the end, yeah, you are writing on a judgment call. And at the same time, the bigger picture is based on, Keith Trachten's world. So following very closely to what he's set out in his scenario books. So it's kind of, in this case, he's writing the canon and I'm writing the expanded universe. Like the dog is wagging the tail, not the other way, right? So I'm following what he's got. But yeah, you're right. When you get into the very micro details of, the radio button, what should have been here instead of there. There's some tricks you can pull off. You can try to pull back and be a little vague, or you can just not focus on certain things. There's lots of little tricks you can use when you don't really know the answer. But yeah, there is just no substitute for having that real world experience. I think even Clancy would have made mistakes with, where this worked and where, what happened here and stuff that. So, yeah, there's a lot of pressure when you're writing this stuff to try to get it right. And I certainly feel that pressure. And if I do have the resources to find out where that button is, I'm definitely going to go check that resource, and I'm going to try to work that into the book if it's relevant to the plot. But if it's not the detail I'm kind of throwing in there, well, probably, okay, maybe we don't need to have that radio button in there,
I think some people take and they forget that you're one man, right? Just like how I got my channel and I cover all these boards, I'm just, one man doing my stuff, and I can't compete with the internet hive mind. You can't compete with internet hive mind. There's no way you can know what everyone out there is going to know. and they'll of course know obscure facts or bits of history that you're not going to know. So they have to keep that in mind when they're reading. Hey, this is written by a person. He's human. He's not perfect. Same when I'm filming my stuff. I'm not perfect. I'm going to make mistakes. That type mentality to it. Yeah. People expect perfection now because they have so much at their fingertips. But you still, you're a person. You can't account for every single little detail.
Yeah, exactly. I think I can remember, this is a good example. I think I wrote in one of my older books, I had like an F-16 firing off a missile, which, for that block, it never had the AIM-7. And, one of the people who was actually flying that plane pointed it out in a review, and I felt horrible about it. I felt like the worst human being, but in the end you got to think like, okay, it could have been an AIM-9, fine, but there are some people who are just never going to get over these details, but there are lots of people who can look at that and go, okay, this is still working for the story, and you get over it. Yeah.
It's a story.
David's going to kill me because that's right. Yeah, exactly.
It's like telling Iron Man, no, your armor couldn't stop that level of bullet. It's like, it's fiction, dude.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. I mean, I try to, I think as long as you're making that attempt, you're never going to find, in one of my books, you're never going to find the M1A1 tank in there, right? I mean, it's not in Europe at that time. It's not even created at that time or produced, I think. So,
really?
It's all M1 Abrams. I believe, anyways, right? So yeah,
it actually came in the following year from when the story took part. We actually researched that with a big issue everyone had, but the M1 Abrams came out a year later, and I won't say anything else, and so it's not as factored into the story because it's really not there, and that's actually why it was the closest point when the Soviets decided to go. Supposedly, they knew that it was coming, and it would tip the balance. But I don't know how factual that is, though. Yeah. Now there is a smaller M1, I think, caliber gun, and that is what was on the battlefield at the time that the story takes place.
Right, 105 millimeter. Yeah.
So that means you're wrong that you have the Abrams in your game, then, there, David.
No. The game has the right Abrams. That was actually when I first brought it to Game On in Seattle. Kevin Sharp almost ripped me a new one. What the hell is going on? The Soviet tank's more powerful than this tank. And I literally
pissed me off too.
Yeah, and I really, what I did was I called up my good buddy there, Keith, and I just handed him the phone. And I said, you need to talk to Kev. And they had actually, I think Keith actually had a nice long chat and explained to him here the timeline and everything else. And then it all made sense to him. So I would say that it is right. What's in the game is right. Okay. And if it's wrong, it's still right. But no. Yeah. Before I know Brad has a question. I got some other questions lined up for you. I just want to give you guys a little headway. That is the that's of course Brad right there. Okay. And those are the books. Now, of course, Blackwell let me do this and decided not to put the books in order just to make my day more interesting. Okay. Thank you, Blackwell. I know you're watching somewhere. But the first book is actually coming with the game. It's Storming the Gap First Strike. Okay. A few people said, hey, that's not the cover that's in the game that's being released. Yes, because the game, the Kickstarter edition, it's the exact same book. Just we gave you a special cover. Okay. The second, and that book, Brad, correct me if I'm wrong about any of this. That's completely written. It's never been released before. It is original story. The Storm.
You're talking about First Strike, yeah.
Yes, Storm and Steel Second Wave is actually what got all of us. I heard about this through Keith. Keith told me I had to talk to Brad. Brad, you got to talk to Brad. I said, well, I already got someone to write the book. He goes, I think this guy is better. I will not mention the other person's name. Okay. And basically, Kevin Sharp also had read Storm and Steel and thought it was a really good book. And so there we went. He wrote 2 other books in the series, An Army of Two. I'll let him get into that. And then The Ghost Insurgency. And what he's writing now if he doesn't take any breaks, people, so you might want to nag him a little bit along here, is Edge of the Line, which is the Air War. And we have more lined up, but we won't go into that. So if you want to take Todd's question first there, Brad.
Yeah. Okay. Well, gee, that's a long journey. But I'll just briefly go into it. So I guess, I've always been a storyteller, and I've always written. I guess even going back to when I was in high school and just writing stuff for my friends for role playing, for doing games like Twilight 2000 and stuff like that. So I'd always had an interest in contemporary military history and sort of hypothetical stuff. And also I wrote adventures and stuff, for my buddies. It was probably my favorite thing to do. And eventually it, that led into university, where I got an undergraduate degree in very much enjoyed during that period. I took a little while off to work as an EMT, and then went back to graduate school. I ended up doing a master's degree in journalism. About halfway through that degree, I kind of figured out that I did not want to be a journalist, that I did not want to be involved with that whole industry, for probably all the reasons that you imagine. I worked as a journalist for a short time, and just got quite disillusioned with it. But that I moved to Japan, started teaching English, but I did a lot of writing courses, taught fiction courses in universities here. And then a few years ago, about 4 years ago, my son was born, and we decided to move back to my wife's hometown in Kyushu, in southern Kyushu. I just decided I had the time to do something, and I thought, gee, I like game design and I like writing, so I just jumped into that. And I didn't think that, at first I was just kind of writing stories for myself, and I was writing blog posts for my blog, for my gaming blog, and I would take some of those stories and kind of take the narrative of each story and try to imagine what each counter is going through, or what one little guy in that counter might be experiencing during that game. And I remember writing a really fun blog post based on a game I had with Kev Sharp. I can hear him already. And anyway, I wrote that up, and I kind of expanded it a little, ended up thinking, well, what happens if I put this online for sale? Would people buy it? And I really didn't think people would. I was really just kind of curious to see what would happen. And I was really surprised people did buy it. And after that, I thought, well, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can try it. So the last few years has been basically continuing this journey, learning this craft, learning how to write a story, learning what it means to grow a character, to have an arc, to have those, how to write exposition without droning on and on like I'm doing now. And it's still very much, I'm still very much learning this craft, but you get better and better with every book. And eventually you get to the point where, you can look at something you wrote and go, yeah, that's pretty good. I like this. This is the kind of story I want to read. And with the game design too, I just kind of think of, what kind of game do I really want to play? And then I make that game. And that's what happened also with NATO Air Commander.
Give them a little details about that.
there it is. You want me to talk more about this?
Yeah, go ahead, Dave. Wait.
So NATO Air Commander, right? Well, I used to work as a university lecturer, and I would lecture for 90 minutes at a time. So you could stop me if I keep going here at any time, because I have a
I got the mute button. Don't worry.
All right, well there you go. Just mute me and talk about whatever. Anyway, so that's the design. It's from Hollandspiel Games, and that came out of a lot of time spent thinking about air power and how that worked, and it has to also do with when I was growing up. My dad worked for 35 years in the aerospace industry, and they basically built fighter aircraft and manufactured rockets and missiles, and basically rearmed NATO during the 80s. And so I'd always had that kind of interest in aircraft and what they do and how they work. And for our family, that whole period, that late Cold War period, really defined my youth, because we were, our livelihood depended on it in a lot of ways. So that Cold War, for a lot of people, though it was abstract, to kids growing up in the 80s, for us, it was very much a real thing. And my dad also ended up designing some weapons, and was very much involved in that late struggle. So anyway, I'd always had that interest, and that kind of carried over into air power, and I'd done a lot of reading about it. And then it got into gaming as well. I mean, looking at things like NATO have tactical air points, and I love that game. It's a wonderful game from Victory Games, 1983. But the one thing I just didn't like about it was that sort of cavalier attitude towards the tactical air and strategic air elements. And I guess in terms of playability, it certainly made it easier because you could focus on the ground war. But then you look at things like the Third World War from GD, which sort of got a little more in depth with it. I mean, it had individual aircraft types. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, exactly. So looking at GDW, they also had a variety of missions. You could do cratering missions, or you could choose to do close things like that. So it sort of got a and I started wondering what would happen if you took that ground system and that ground and air system and you turned it, sort of its head. So instead of taking the focus away from the ground, now you're focusing on the air. So I always think of NATO Air Commander as sort of a topsy-turvy version of GEW's Third World War, or NATO. It's kind of like standing it on its head. So anyway, to make a long story short, I designed it and worked with Tom Russell on it, Tom and Mary Russell, who did a fantastic job of getting playtesters and streamlining the rules. And they made it so much better than the original design, that by the time it left me, I think there's a point with every game designer where a game gets to a point where it sort of takes on its own life, and it's like a child that's kind of grown up, and you're not exactly sure what you're not exactly even sure what you've produced. It's kind of like art in a way. It just sort of goes out there. So it went out, and I was pretty petrified of how it would be received. And the first review came in, I saw it was like something like, oh, this is a waste of $40. And that was like the very first thing that came up on BGG, and I was like, oh my god, I will never design a game again. This is the worst situation. My game is a failure. But then slowly people started to warm up to it, and some people really enjoyed it, and I could see the reviews coming in. And yeah, I mean, it just sort of does its own thing. It's I'm it. But yeah.
Cool. This is so cool.
Whose was that?
It's
What that is.
I have a soundboard hooked up.
Oh, I thought someone was yelling in the background.
All right, Dan's got a question for you, I think.
Okay, Brad. Obviously, you being, first of all, you're a geek.
Yeah.
Second of all, you must have been influenced by some writers, right? And tell me you're a Tolkien fan.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
What did he write?
Yes, to total find a couple. the Hobbit,
I like that.
the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the Silmarillion, right? Yeah. Is that a quiz?
Okay, it's okay. No. I just
At the end of the show, there's a quiz.
He was having you prove your geek chops is all.
All right,
problem.
this
Are you
is
trying to
Tom-
ask me a question? Favorite books? Okay. I mean, favorite. Yeah, favorite books. That I've written. In terms of books that I've written, for David, probably my favorite book would be, 6 months ago I would have said Ghost Insurgency. Yeah, I would still say Ghost Insurgency. And it's one of my favorite books because it has my favorite characters in it. And all of my books, and they're obviously military fiction, but there's themes in each of these books. And some you have to look a little harder than others.
Here's the next
I'm not going. Yeah, any themes? Yeah, right. Okay, no, that's a good question. So there are themes in these books, sure. And I'm trying to write about characters, and I'm trying to write about characters who are exposed to this extreme situation, this traumatic situation, and trying their best to deal with it. And everybody's dealing with it in complex ways, just as human beings do. So anyway, one of the themes, I guess, in Ghost Insurgency was definitely dealing with trauma. In Ghost Insurgency, I'll tell you a little about the book. It's about two Vietnam veterans who are brought back into the service during 1985 to help out with an insurgency in East Germany. And both of these guys are heavily traumatized from their time in Vietnam. And the guy that they're helping out, the leader of these insurgents, is traumatized because he watched his father get shot down in the streets by the Soviets during the East German workers' strike in the early 50s. So everybody in that book is heavily, heavily damaged, and everybody in different ways. And one of the major characters, Joe Ricci, is dealing with it by trying to help people. That's his goal, and trying to save his friend. And the other character, whose name is Ned Littlejohn, he is racked with guilt. He called in an airstrike on a village, thinking that it was deserted, but it isn't. And this is something he's trying to live with for 15 years. And he's trying to make up for this. That's his goal. And the other guy, the East German, whose name is Werner Brandt, he is dealing by trying to kill every single Russian he sees. So here you have three characters, all with this really heavy background, and how do they deal with it, and what's the logical end to that way that they're trying to deal with these issues. And you try to grope with that while at the same time writing an exciting military fiction. It's not easy, but I think I managed it with that book.
All right. There's another question for you, buddy.
Right. Real people. Right. Okay. All right. Well, I'll talk about a little about this, and I think David, you could probably answer the last half of this question. So the first thing is, yeah, there are real people, characters in it. I've got Ronald Reagan in one of the books in First Strike, and I tried. I mentioned Real Romanov, who is rival to Mikhail Gorbachev. And I've tried to use like real Soviet generals at that time, real Soviet staff, as well as making reference to like real NATO staff members as well. You try to do it in a respectful way. Obviously, your images come from popular media. I don't know any of these people, so you've got to work with what you can. So for Reagan, for example, I had to, watch YouTube clips and, really look at how he dealt with people, not just in his speeches, but just regular press conferences or, trying to catch those candid moments for how he actually talked outside of those formal White House duties. Now, the big challenge for when you put a guy like Reagan into a story is that, immediately you're jumping into a political quagmire. People are going to assume that you're going to portray him a certain way based on your own. Now, I'm the most apolitical guy that I know. I have no interest in engaging in any kind of political debate at all with anybody. And, if I had to characterize that, there we go. See, I just,
no, that was clearing my throat. Sorry.
Right. There you go. Thanks. You asked me whether I'm left or right.
I wasn't busting your chops, I swear.
I'm probably, it's okay. So I'm probably more apathetic, probably politically apathetic is probably what Fez. So when I portray these people, I'm aware that maybe people are going to read things into it that just aren't there. And that's okay. That's fine. I accept that. David, though, I think you could probably mention writing lock and load gamers in there. Go ahead.
Well, the whole thing was, I thought it would be fun. Actually, I think in an army of two, if I'm not mistaken, the two main character names in the book, or one of the two, is Maurice and Darren White. Am I correct? Yeah.
Yep. Except I got a demotion. I got put in the army.
Well,
sorry.
You're undercover. Okay.
Exactly. That's it.
What am I doing in the book?
You are. Well, I know your name is mentioned in the World at War Kickstarter video. You're the reporter on the ground chasing the Soviet tank.
That's actually kind of fitting.
Yeah, exactly.
So you'll be a news reporter chasing the Soviet tanks behind the lines.
Do I survive?
You'll have to read and find out.
Okay, so that's all I can tell you. I will
wait for the sequel.
Comes with a box and a lid.
Yeah. So the whole idea of it was Keith and I had done two things. One, we wanted to use real-world events. We found it's really hard when you say that there were no space shuttles for whatever reason in your story, or America invaded Egypt, things that are just so far out of what we would call the normal history now. So Keith and I made a conscious effort to make all the events that lead up to the war what really happened. So Sadat was assassinated. In the backdrop of the story, he's assassinated, but maybe not for the reasons you know. But the actual main event is the same. So you don't have to try to remember things that are skewed in any way, because they're not skewed as far as that goes. As far as the people's names go, It was just something Keith and I thought was fun. Putting a whole bunch of people's names that you don't know and the people reading it don't know. I guess it works, but it's nice reading Dan as he's running behind, the Soviet Union's lines, getting footage of tanks, or reading about Maurice and Darren, taking out half a division, being at the Marines, with the Soviets, whatever the story is. And what we did was we asked the public, hey, do you want to be in the story? We're not promising anything. Give us an idea what you want to, what side you want to be on. And Kevin Sharp's in the first book. Mark Van Marshall's in the first book.
Kevin Sharp. I'm not buying anything.
You have to see what happens to him. That's all I'm going to say. Anyway.
Okay.
But that's pretty much what we did. And a guy can ask to be a little bit more of a villain character, to be a little bit more of a whatever he wants, and then we try to work that in there. It's just for all of you guys who are reading the book, hearing the audiobook, you go, oh, hey, I know Dan. Hey, I know Devin. I know Nate. And you read all these guys in there. I think to the story. And if you don't know anybody, what difference does it make? It doesn't change the story at all.
David, Kevin Sharp as a character, I just flashed on me.
Kevin flashed you? What?
because he's
that explains a lot right there.
Because Kevin, he looks German to me, the guy, and it's what was that movie? Tom Hanks, for God's sakes, man, come on, World War
Terminal?
II. Huh?
Band of Heroes?
Saving Private Ryan?
Saving Private Ryan. That German guy who kills the Jewish guy and goes, shh, 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 and he just slowly digs his knife in the guy's heart.
It'll be better this way, is what he's saying to him while he's killing him.
Yeah.
That's Kevin Sharp.
All right. Well, I see the census coming up right about now. Guys, we're going to take a short break, and we're going to come back in a minute. Hold on.
Uh-oh.
We've got commercial breaks.
Lock and Load Publishing will be right back after this message.
Welcome to 30 Seconds with No Enemies here. This week we have a hell of an intro. We also continue the conspiracy of the phone call with Harold Buchanan. We got reviews, unboxings, and 2 new Kickstarter news by Worthington Publishing and DVG. Plus, you got me and my music. And have an awesome on-the-air evening with Lock and Load Publishing. The place to be. Have a good one.
The news that doesn't hurt.
Oh, it hurts.
I'll see what the comments say.
That's going to be in my head when I'm reading the book and he's like chasing the tank, and it's just going to just kill the fiction for me.
Wait till you see what happens when he catches it. That's what I'm going to say.
That's the thing. Catch the tank. I'm sorry, Dan.
I have 4 questions for you.
I can't get Caddyshack out of my head right now.
So one of the things I want to discuss with the books is someone asked me what makes our books maybe a little bit unique. Well, obviously it has a parallel to the games, okay, but that's pretty limited. One of the things Brad and I did discuss while we were talking about the story, and I kind of told him to take it anywhere he wanted to, which he did, was I mentioned about how you read those books when I was in high school and my early 30s about the fall of France, and they're going through these towns that I could not find on a map if I had to save my life. So one of the things Brad did was he drew up maps, especially he did this in First Strike. Okay, and some of them, they actually come in the book. So you can help follow along a little bit better these places. And the places are, for the most part, I believe they're all real, right, Brad? They're real towns and places?
They're all real. Yeah, everything's real.
Yeah, so they're real places. But,
those are from Mark Van Marshall.
Right, Mark Van Marshall, the guy did the illustrations. And here's a blown up of one. I know if you want to talk a little bit about that or what you're trying to show there, but it's a little something different.
Yeah, I based a lot of this stuff on the scenarios and the maps. The first thing I did when I started writing these books was I asked Keith for all the maps, for copies of the maps, and I I took a good look. You know, mainly basically using Google, and also some topography maps to kind of figure out where things are and maybe try to estimate how things would go. I also used some software. I used a game called Armored Brigade, which also in the in real places, and it's Cold War gone hot. So basically with these three sets of data, these three data points, I tried to think of how an attack might go. I kind of tried to think like a gamer, like if I'm in this scenario, what would happen here, using the same units from each scenario. And that's, I tried to point them out with the map so you can kind of follow along. I think they're in the back of most of the books. Yeah, they are. They're in the back.
All right. And these are the two that are coming out that are not related to the game, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. So I guess in the same way that Star Wars has its major movies and the expanded universe. I mean, these kind of books would be expanded EU kind of stuff.
Don't go down Disney's path. You're better than that. Okay.
Oh no.
Until you get bought out by Disney, then.
Right. Right. So, okay. You would know because I would have like a big mountain of cocaine right here and a bunch of hookers right here.
Wow,
so,
this really took a different path.
I'm working for David Heath, guys. so, David's great, but he's not going to give me cocaine and hookers.
Yeah, I might give a link to this video to your wife too, buddy. I think you need that.
She doesn't speak English. It's okay. I'm in the clear.
I will pay to get it translated.
Google Translate will fix all that.
Why is she married? We don't understand English. Come on. Anyway, yeah, these are kind of independent of the scenarios. And I gotta say, these Army of Two started out life as one of my older books called Enemy Line, and I was and the English, and I thought, oh, that might be enough, and then I started rewriting it, and I was like, no, I can do a whole bunch of stuff. Basically, rewrote the whole book, and there's maybe like this 1% of enemy lines that sort of survived in there. It's almost unrecognizable from the original. I rewrote it, and I gave it to Keith, and he looked at it and he's like, well, yeah, this is good, but I'm not sure about this. And I'd go back, major plot points until I got to a point where I was like, oh, a lot than the original. And it kind of follows on from First Strike, I guess, Army of Two. And this has, come on. I mean, that makes the book. There you go.
Winner right there.
There you go. So, yeah,
and
that's
Dan running behind the tank. Come back and come back. I have 4 questions for you.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And Ghost Insurgency, which I already mentioned. I already talked
about. I think I can answer this one. I do have plans for Brad if he doesn't quit. No, I do have plans for Brad to do multiple books alongside the games. Okay, and of course it depends how well it sells and everything else. But so far, the feedback, Mark and everyone else, have been really good on them. The good gracious of Brad and I have come up with a plan that we're going to release the audiobook and PDF to the Kickstarter backers early. And what I mean by early is it might go out as early as this week. Okay. We have all the files. I just have to have time to put them together. And you'll get the first book as you're waiting for the game. So I felt this was a great way to get you into the stories as well. We do plan, or Brad and I had talked about going back, and just because first book is out doesn't mean there can't be another book about some of the battling in there or some of the inventions in there. One of the things Brad will probably not say about himself, but I will. Okay, and I have him muted so he can't yell. Okay, is it's not going to be just combat books. There's going to be espionage books. So as First Strike is taking place, or in between First Strike and Second Wave, there might be spying in Washington or maybe Moscow. And
what about erotica?
No, we're going to leave that to you. Okay. We want to keep the subject short. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that way.
Well, there you go. Dan could be in that one. Double innuendo.
Yep, there you go.
Look, man. If I show you what's not short, you're all gonna go blind. Okay, so take it easy.
That's a tall tale right there.
Wait, FCC's on all of our own. Hold on, no. Anyway.
And by the way, David, you know how you keep Brad in with cocaine and hookers?
Yeah, I know. It is a little bit of a high budget there. We'll have to work on that.
What's the conversion rate for Japanese currency? We're gonna check this out.
Are we doing a GoFundMe now all of a sudden or something?
I think there's rules about that, but all right, I'm just saying. But the plan is to introduce different types of stories as well into the World War 85 universe. So that should answer that. I have some other questions for you.
I got, if I can jump in. Yeah.
No.
Sorry. I would say, David's kind of very, very high ambitions for the series, and it's great to be working with him, with these kind of a guy who's that enthusiastic. I would say, yeah, it really depends. It really depends on if people want it. I'll keep writing it, sure. But yeah, if people maybe are looking for a different direction, then that's okay too. I'm okay with handing over the reins if that's what people want. But I think people really enjoy this. I think they really like it.
Is the espionage one's going to be similar to like the American Assassins series? If you've read that, you know which one I'm talking about.
I don't know. Honestly, that's based. I don't know where David went, but he's strutting around.
You'll get the cocaine and hookers.
You guys
cursing me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
The camera died. My hookers came. No, I'm sorry.
So David wrote this espionage book, and he sent it to me, and I honestly still haven't even looked at it. Sorry, David. I just haven't had the time. I've been so busy working on Edge of the Line, and this year, honestly, this year has been crazy. It's like I've got 6 books coming out, which is just a ridiculous amount of work. A lot of authors don't. He does, yeah, and yeah, you gotta kind of rein him in sometimes. So yeah, I would say after I do Edge of the Line, I would really, really like to take a nice break from the series and then come back to it maybe in the second half of next year if things are kind of going smoothly and things are going from that point. So yeah, whereas David is kind of go full gear, pedal to the metal. I'm a little more reserved. I'm a lot more reserved with how things are going to go. Well, let's see.
You got a family, you got other obligations. That's fine. You got to prioritize things in your life.
Plus, it gives us time to work on the
exactly.
Netflix series.
What were you saying, Mo?
Exactly.
Plus, it gives us time to work on the Netflix series. We were joking about that last week.
I could see David actually pushing for that.
Brad,
If we
wait, that was a joke.
Brad.
I thought it was serious.
Brad, cocaine and hookers.
You can't throw down, dude. Why when you stop? All right. Well, we also want to get him to do a game for us on the NATO air war. Look, you're just not doing this stuff. You tell me you want to take a break. Oh, wow. Yeah. Baseball answers, man. Baseball answers. You ever heard that?
Yeah. We did talk about this. Yeah. I'll get on that with all that spare time. So I should mention that in addition to writing books, I run a small business, and so I run a small business here in Japan. So a pretty impressive chunk of my time as well. So yeah, trying to find the time to do all this challenge, really, that's a huge challenge.
Just poking in your personal
People
business,
ask,
but what's the
how
small
do you
business?
I teach out of I bought a house last year, and actually behind the house there was a school, and I bought the school. So I have the school, and I'm actually in the school right now. I'm in the principal's office, and
No, that's not the first time you said that. I'm
whoever
sure.
wants to come in.
Oh, it's kind of cool. I mean, you got your hands in a lot of stuff.
I have my hands in maybe too many things.
That's not first time you said that too.
I don't know about designing anymore. I got a design coming up, maybe with Hollandspiel, called That Others May Live, and it's based on combat search and rescue in Vietnam, and that's something that I've already. For me, it's ready for play testing. I'm just waiting for Tom and Mary to kind of to get through their back catalog.
I think I saw them talking about that on Facebook. I can't remember. It was a few weeks or a month back or so. They were asking or mentioning it. I was interested then. I didn't know you were involved with that. I
am, yeah. And that kind of game, it pops up its head once in a while, and then ducks. And I'm not sure. I guess I think Tom and Mary are just ridiculously busy this year. And maybe next year we'll get to the development stage. I don't know, but I think after that, I think I've kind of, I kind of feel like hit a point now where I need to either focus on writing or game design, and I'm kind of leaning towards the writing. So I think whatever happens, I think That Others May Live might be the last thing I decide.
You go by the reviews. Your writing's doing better. I'm just saying.
There you go. So yeah.
All right. Here's another one for you. They're asking questions here about the originals and second editions, and I'll let you handle that.
Right. Okay. So First Strike is a totally original story. I started off writing in January of this year, and that's totally everything's new in that. It basically explores the origins of the war and then talks about the first three battles, which are based on the first three scenarios of the game. I have to say, when David and Keith came to me, they had a very, very well developed idea of what was going to happen in the world. They knew what was going to happen in the expansions. They were like the Game of Thrones guys. They could see like 2 or 3 seasons. So it was very, very easy to get into that universe and start writing. Then I did then I did Insurgency, Ghost Insurgency. Storm and Steel was next, and that is a second edition to Storm and Steel. So Storm and Steel Second Wave is very much a second edition. What did I do for it? I wrote prologue, introduced some articles into it, maps. So it's quite a significant upgrade. I changed different plot points to make it match with Keith's vision. I changed, spoiler alert, I won't say in too much, but I changed the ending significantly. There's a lot of change in Storm and Steel. The next book was Insurgency, which originally was Insurgent, which became the Ghost Insurgency. Again, I had to change up the ending quite a bit. Expanded what was going on and why. Tried to fit it into Keith and David's kind of. So a lot more detail and a lot more connection to other events. And there's actually some character overlap coming from First Strike into that book. Army of Two, like I said, started off life as a second edition of Enemy Lines, but I ended up basically totally rewriting it. It's a brand new book as far as I'm concerned. You might recognize, a little bit, like a 1% or 2% coming from Enemy Lines, but as I said, it's pretty much unrecognizable. And again, integrating characters from other books into there. I would say, in a lot of ways, Army of Two is kind of a direct sequel to First Strike, but you don't have to have read. There's no specific order to these. You could read them in any kind of order you want, and it still makes sense. I mean, they're not, it's not like reading a Tolkien book where if you don't read, book one, you're kind of lost in book two.
Okay. Let me see if we have any more questions here.
So you're saying it's not like Tolkien, so we can't get like a trilogy out of it?
Oh, no.
No, I'm talking about movie trilogy. Because Dave's, plans with all the Netflix series and everything.
Not now, gentlemen.
Right, exactly.
I'm making you all line up and kiss my you-know-what.
Stop talking along those lines. He's going to ask me and Mo to film it.
I'll do it. We're in.
I
Nate's
should mention,
got the whole undercover look going right now.
I want to mention to Mo is that I actually had a different name for one of the characters. I actually had one of the characters as Black, and David change it. Actually had you reserved for another book. It was going to be the invasion of Denmark, and there was going to be like a Marine invasion in there, and you were going to be in there, but now you're Army, thanks to Dave. So,
well, it could be another.
You the beer,
it could be my evil twin, and then the Marine one definitely. Well, he said that I'm supposed to be a Marine character in one of the, I think tactical or something like that later on. So it's like, yeah, definitely, you got to have me in the Marine Corps. I mean, have me in the Army's fine, but really, it's no, it's fine. I think it's great. I love the writing, and the books are really enjoyable. So for those people who are not familiar with it, I think you're really going to enjoy it. It's definitely has that Clancy type of feel to it, which is what everybody, is immediately going to think. And it's got that type of style, Brad Thor, Tom Clancy, that style of writing, and it's really enjoyable. I think everybody's going to really like them.
Thanks. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure you knew who to kill. That's all.
Of course, that's the
that guy.
That's the propaganda from the writer, of course.
David's
he's not making up fiction.
David, he's like the not the director of the show. He owns the movie studio. In the 1930s, there was this guy, Mayor. What was his name?
Godfather.
Don Corleone.
Yeah.
Hey, someone, you don't have to read the books in any order. I know that, but someone was asking, so.
No, I don't think so. I think they're pretty independent of each other. David had this vision, and again, David, really had an idea of what he wanted here when we started off. And the best way I can describe it, and what really clicked with me, is he wanted kind of a Winds of War approach to this. If you've ever seen that miniseries from the late 70s where in World War II and you have a family and this character is at Midway and that character is at Pearl Harbor and this character is over in Europe. And he wanted the same kind of approach to it. And I thought that was really cool. And I thought that was a really different way of approaching this kind of story, and it hadn't been done before. It was very unique. And I thought it was a very imaginative idea. And that's what really attracted me to this project, was that kind of very interesting take on it. Yeah.
Okay, guys, online, if you have any questions, type them in. I mean, Mo, Dan, Nate, Devin, anyone got questions for him?
We're waiting.
You can ask me whatever you want.
I'm curious as to the writing process.
Sure.
curious as to the writing process you follow. I know in writing you've got two extremes. On one extreme, you've got the person who does the chapter by chapter outline, bullet points, has pretty much got the entire story written in their head. It's just a process of them putting it down in a logical, organized format. And then at the other end, you've got the stream of conscious writers who just kind of sit down and just let it flow. Where on the spectrum does your writing style fall in?
Depends on how much.
Well, I'm more of a. So I guess the term that you're using here is, we call them pantsers and plotters. And so pantsers are writers who write by the seat of their pants. They don't know what they're going to write when they sit down. And some of the most famous authors out there, Stephen King is a pantser. He doesn't know why. He has no idea where a book is going to take him until he gets to the end, which is maybe why some of his endings aren't that great. And then you have plotters who sit down and they plot everything out. I kind of approach each book as a military campaign, and no, what is it? The old saying, no tactic survives. No strategy survives contact with the enemy, right? That's
no
exactly
plan survives first contact.
That's right. Exactly. Having that plan is essential. And that's exactly the same way it is in writing, is you need to go in there each day knowing exactly what you're going to write. Otherwise you go off on these tangents and you end up, writing, with broken books, and wasted time and lots of frustration. So I used to, when I started off, I was a pantser. I was just like, I'm going to be like Stephen King and I'm just going to write what I feel like. And, and then it comes out and you're like, well, that was less than good. So, as I wrote more and more, I became a plotter, where I would sit down and I'd say, this is exactly what I want to write today. And that's how I approach writing. And that's why I can write so much, is that I can, I don't wait for any kind of inspiration at all. I'm a working writer. I sit down at 9 o'clock and I know exactly what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be writing. And then I'm going to be doing that all day until 5 o'clock. And then when 5 o'clock stops, then I stop writing. And I don't wait for inspiration or anything like that to hit me. It's just get to work and know what you're going to do, and have to really make super efficient.
So Brad,
and
So Brad, you're not a fan of the beat kind of writing, right? Jack Kerouac.
Yeah, I've read it. I've read a lot of Jack Kerouac stuff, and I guess you had to be.
Yeah.
And I like different writing. I like Paul Auster, and and that influences my. And I like Tom Clancy, and that influences my work in lots of obvious. But I love Sidney Sheldon, as trashy as some of that is. And I love, Mac Bolan. I could read that for forever. I spent all last Bolan novels. They're kind of, it's junk fiction, but I love it. And it all of that stuff comes in, and it's like a goulash. It influences how you write, whether you like it or not. So one of the things I started doing. Yep.
So you're gonna tell me you're a Joan Collins fan too?
Please don't answer that.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything. Every writer is going to teach you something about writing. Absolutely. So I don't know. I've read Danielle Steele. Then sit down at a keyboard and go to work. And some of that stuff. It may not affect like plot points. You don't have a romance or whatever, but it affects certainly how you think about how to develop a character, or maybe how to do stating things outright. How to hide exposition and things.
So I'm very surprised you're not doing erotica. I'm very surprised you're not doing erotica.
You're really pushing the erotica angle, aren't you?
You're really into that.
A soldier has to. So is
there something you want to tell us, Dan?
There we go.
I think what everybody in this group likes when it comes is war games would be more panzerotica. You know, it's like
I like
you
that.
want the war porn stuff. You know,
I like that. I like that. You know, the Panzer's got the big gun.
Oh,
tanks are just overcompensating. What can you say?
I guess.
So let's let Brad continue on with his story. I think what he you know the point he's making is very good. It's like when you want to have a good story, when you want to tell a good story, it's good to look at it from, you know, to absorb multiple points of view and multiple storytelling styles, you know, because okay, you know, if you go with Duce's favorite stuff, you watch Lifetime movies, you know, then you can learn how to. I tried getting you while you were mid-drink, but it didn't work. But if you, you know, you can learn something from everyone, from everything. And when it comes to storytelling, it's very complex, you know, and you're trying to get different aspects. If you just go with, here comes this tank, it shoots, bam, and you just want to go popcorn action, that's great. But if you want to get into more of the technical aspect, the training, the mentality behind everything for the soldiers that are involved, and then you want to go the political angle too. You're trying to get multiple things into one picture to give an overall big picture, and that's what Brad's trying to do in his writing.
yeah. The thing I really what we haven't really talked about is Brad has also done the book for Space Infantry. Now, Brad will tell you that I gave the first part of the story, and I wrote the first story out, and I'm a very direct guy, so it's like, you know, Lenny had to go down the hallway, so Lenny walked down the hallway. Brad really, but not overpowering you with, I'm going to say, useless details. He really brings the character that way. He's talking about what's on his mind as he's walking down the hallway, how his boot clicks on the metal of the floor as he's going down, you know, the starship's hallway. And he just did to me, just an incredible job of that. I mean, and I really think people are going to like these stories. I've read them all, but I've listened to only 2 of them now, and they've been really good. And the voice actors, Keith is working on the first 2, and we picked up 2 of the guys. It was funny because Brad's like, well, I don't like that guy, and I'm like, well, I don't like that guy, you know, and we were going back and forth on the audiobook guys, but then we got 2 guys we were really settled on, and I know Brad doesn't even know this. Army of Two is already done and sitting on my desk, so I have to put that up on Audible. And
yeah, Keith did an amazing job. Keith did incredible, he actually got a Reagan impersonator for the Ronald Reagan parts.
Yeah, he did. That's right.
Incredible.
Well,
it sounds amazing. Yep.
Well, I like that.
Yeah, Reagan had a very distinct way
and he actually does it.
Sure.
And Keith, you know, David Heath is a character in that book. A great David Heath impression. It's
really
second to none. You gotta hear it. It's amazing.
Get ready for that. You know, you gotta listen. It's David Heath talking, right?
Forget about it.
You know, this is how David laughs.
He nails it.
Bunch of hooligans, I'm telling you, man, unbelievable.
You know, I saw when I was at
David Heath for Halloween.
I prompted Keith or whatever. I said, Keith, come on, do some voice something, and he did a Russian guy, and I swear to God, I didn't know if that was Keith or not. He just came out, and then he did a Russian Jew, completely different. It was awesome. I'm gonna put. I think I got a small little snippet here that you can get from this. Hold on.
Part 1. Origins. Warning shots.
January 1981. The Oval Office, Washington, D.C. Jelly bean, Keith? No, thank you, Mr. President. I'm fine. Dave? Sure. Why not? Thank you, sir. The licorice ones are the best. The 3 men settled down on the soft cream-colored couch that dominated the center of the room. The portraits of past presidents hung on the walls, their heavy gaze pressing upon them, silent witnesses to history. Keith Tracton placed a pair of sweating palms on his lap and braced himself for what was to come next. It was not the high office that had him worried. This was not the first president he had met face to face. In fact, His service to the country had demanded 3 such meetings before. All of them had taken place right after the pomp and ceremony of Inauguration Day had died down. Each new president, swamped with the duties of having to steer the ship of state, had reacted differently to the desperate message that he had to deliver. It was not a task he had relished, but as the deputy director of the NSA, he had no choice but to pass on his expert analysis of this terrible situation and let the president decide what to do with it. Today, as usual, he had come here with David Heath, the deputy director of operations for the CIA. Hopefully, the 2 allies could make their voices heard.
I want to hear more David Heath.
He's the deputy director of intelligence.
Yeah.
That's why you're in the army, buddy.
And that's why we're at war.
I'll see if I can find. I'll see if I can find the section where he's actually talking to him. Hold on. Keep talking, guys.
Well, we'll keep talking. All right.
So, Gimpy, where did you go with that beard for the last 5 minutes? Huh?
Better go touch it up and get ready for your literotica stuff.
Y'all got to remember, I got a few-month-old baby and wife right now, so there are
You might want to put a
priorities.
comma in there because that didn't sound right.
Good save there. Good
Baby
save.
and a wife.
And a wife, yes. Baby came from the wife. With the wife.
It's just so easy to make Brad laugh. That's why I have so much fun with this every time he's on.
Yeah, last week.
Go on, guys.
That's okay. Last week he kept typing into the private chat backstage and making me laugh, and God, I looked like an idiot. Anyway.
Well,
Anyway.
Oh, I thought we were voting. Sorry. Here's another section of the book, guys.
We're here to discuss what's been happening with the Soviets. At the drop of the final word, Reagan leaned forward. Tracton tried not to get his hopes up too much, but it appeared that he was at least interested in what Heath was about to say. The situation, Mr. President, is much worse than it seems, more dangerous than it looks. For 35 years now, we've been at war. Reagan nodded.
I understand we're in a conflict right now, but isn't it overselling it a bit to say war, Mr. Heath?
I mean exactly that, Mr. President. The Soviet Union has not only funded, but orchestrated and participated in acts of war against this nation and its allies for nearly 4 decades. Although most of our citizens and politicians are well aware of our mutual enmity, what they don't know is the true extent of the conflict. The fact is that many hostile acts have been committed against the United States and its allies. The senior statesman put his palms up.
I think I understand what you're saying. I even campaigned on it, but you're right. I'm sure I don't know the full extent of what's happening out there. So can you tell me the history as you understand it?
Heath gestured at Tracton, who
There you go, guys.
It started off as World of War and ended up being Goodfellas.
I'm sitting there thinking, like, the accent is totally wrong for David. Like, they really should have gone with, like, that over-the-top Yankee accent. That New Yorker.
New York accent. Yeah. What the hell are you talking about?
I will say the accent sounds more like a Kennedy, like a Boston accent.
It does kind of have that Kennedy-esque, you know, that Pack the County ad.
I think it's because he wants to shoot him in the head.
Well, that is honestly one of the things that people do get confused about is coming from the Northeast myself is people from New York and people from Massachusetts. Oh, you sound all like no. Absolute different. No. You can definitely tell the difference between a New Yorker and somebody from Boston. You know, there's a definite distinct difference the way they speak.
When y'all move down here, down south where I live, all right, it all sounds the same. It's just butchering the English language. Although, make sure if you have someone doing me, you get a nice redneck accent.
Oh, don't worry. We will work on that.
The funny thing is Northeasterners get picked on for butchering the accent. Meanwhile, people down south say y'all. That's not a contraction.
There's no wrong, y'all. All right. And you got to draw it out. All right.
Y'all.
It comes from the back of your throat.
No, I know. I live in Texas now, so
I like y'all.
Yeah, y'all's good. And y'all say, yeah, and see, y'all got me coming out with my damn accent.
No, you just said it twice.
Yeah.
See, we say use guys.
Yeah,
up north, we say
guys.
use guys. No, we say use guys. Now,
Mo,
Pittsburgh people say yins guys.
You know, Mo, use guys is very Italian.
Yeah, we are. There's a big Italian, well, there's a big everything presence up in New York. I mean, it is truly the melting pot area of the country. If you want to go up there, you'll see, every type of food and, ethnicity possible that up there. It's really cool for an exposure to a lot of different things.
You want to see a melting pot? Come over to Canada.
Just because you can't cook, you end up overheating it on the stove and it melts.
Dan, I told you the best analogy I heard about Canada versus the U.S. is it's like the apartment above a very good party, right? You're just sitting there kind of listening, like, wow, it sounds really fun down there. I wonder what they're doing.
Whatever.
I'm just messing with you, buddy. Hey, you guys have Mounties.
And hockey and good whiskey. That's all you need right there.
Yeah, you should see our strip joints.
Hairy strippers.
Hey.
Keith Tracton's practicing his oot and a boot for the audiobook.
Oot and a boot? You just have to have a different way of speaking when you're. Well, it depends on what part of Canada, too.
Yeah, that's East Coast.
Canadians have accents, yeah.
Like, I don't have an accent, you see?
Right. Yeah, you do. You're from Montreal.
Oh, yeah, you do.
Ask him to say another. He won't say another. He'll say, instead of saying another, he'll say another. And another thing.
Dan, come on, let's go. Hold on, wait.
Hey, it's another Soviet tank, eh?
That's the Irish influence, this, that, and that.
See, there's no TH, it's all D.
Another.
Yeah, but to us regular people, I mean, it just sounds like another Yankee accent. Normal people, all we hear is Yankee, Yankee, Yankee. Y'all need to learn how to talk.
Yeah, I like y'all. Y'all's good, man.
It's because it's from the South. Everything from the South is good.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Grits, beer, shit
No,
on shit.
I beg to differ.
Deliverance.
Wow, that just went down the Pencaldi angle right there.
Oh, nice going, though.
Deliverance, that's good. That's good. Squeal like okay, enough.
You sure got a purty mouth, David.
It's the same, it's the same. It's the same in Japanese, kind of like accents in Japanese, and because we live in like a really southern and rural area, it's exactly like being in like my son has the moment I've heard people say he has like the equivalent of like the most Alabama deep south kind of Japanese accent. So instantly whenever we go up north, like if we go to Tokyo, people like as soon as my son opens his mouth, people are like they start laughing. Because they're just like, oh my God, what are you saying? Yeah, that's exactly it. They're like, they deduct like, yeah, they're just like, what is this? Anyway, I like it. It's cool.
You know why deliverance would never happen in Canada?
No one gets delivered in Canada. Nothing gets delivered in Canada.
No, deliverance would never happen in Canada because it's too cold to be too much shrinkage.
You're right. Canada is cold.
But you did not deny that you did not deny there's any porch boys and banjos, though.
No.
What I'm curious about is Japan, Tokyo, that whole area. Is it like you see in the movies? Like everyone's just racing around and drifting around corners and driving high-speed cars and a bunch of Japanese girls in mini skirts? Because if it is, I'm moving there like tomorrow.
Yep. That is exactly what it's like. Everywhere. All over. Yes.
But would they call me like a guy?
Only in 2 districts.
I'd be the outsider.
Yeah, there'll be a samurai greeting you at the airport and be like, wow, nani o shiteru gaijin. Yeah, past them like in a 2D scroller.
See, that's the thing. Like, I wouldn't even care what like the Japanese
girl
was saying to me. She could be saying like mean stuff, like "you ugly fat American bastard," and I wouldn't care. Just listen to her. Like, oh, sounds so great. Just keep talking to me.
To get that, all you need is mountains of Coke, and you're good.
So Gimpy, how's the lease doing?
She's outside.
That's why he's saying that. He's not stupid.
I don't think
she knows I have a thing for Asians.
I don't think they have cocaine in Japan.
And where?
Japan.
I've never found any.
Japan.
I've looked, believe me.
That's why he has such a fixation on the hookers and blow there.
I was watching like one of those Drugs Inc. shows, and I think they did say something like the import price for drugs over in Japan is like through the roof or something like that because they're harder to get.
New business opportunity, Brad.
Oh yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, you got to deal with the Yakuza.
A little blow with every book.
Brad and blow. There you go.
I will say this: the other day, I was talking to Brad, and his son comes in. His son speaks very good English. He really for what is he 4? Your son now?
Yeah, he's 4. That's right. Yeah.
You should bring him on the camera. Talk to all of us strange Americans.
Oh
we
God!
Don't want to spar the poor kid.
No way.
Well, he should have like right
to grow up.
Actually,
he does have he's Canadian and Japanese. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, I didn't realize you were Canadian. I thought you were American.
You didn't recognize the Yankee
Canadian.
accent?
That's right. Well,
like I said, Yankees. Anything north of the Mason
because a lot of Americans. Well, a lot of Americans say that because actually, you spend enough time overseas and your accent becomes more neutral. Yeah. So a lot of Americans assume that I'm American when they meet me.
You can definitely hear Canadian.
I lost my oot in the boot.
Well, can you? Where are you from, Brad?
Sorry.
There you go, right there. That means you're Canadian because you said sorry.
Yeah,
Americans don't say
like
sorry.
W in there.
Exactly. There's like AU in there.
So
Americans
screw you
say,
guys.
Oh, man, sorry, man. They go sorry. Canadians are like sorry.
So, Brad, where are you from?
I'm from Winnipeg, just outside
Winnipeg,
of Winnipeg.
What the hell's in Winnipeg?
Yeah.
The Jets.
Winnipegians. Which is the part that has French?
Duce's area.
Yeah. Quebec. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Quebec is a French sounding word. That
Well,
makes
Quebec,
sense.
Quebec is French, man.
Yeah, aren't you required to speak French?
By law. By law.
Oh, that's incredible.
It should be requirement to speak English in America.
You know what? It's the only if you come in Quebec, when you see a sign, firstly it's in French on top, and then it's 60% smaller in English.
Well, I mean, that's the main language for the area. That's their heritage.
No, I understand. No, the thing is, Nate, is that the English pissed off the Frenchmen so much in Quebec, and it started in 1759 it started.
You had to look at the game, didn't you, to get that?
It's been the boys' club English, and I understand these Frenchmen, how they got so pissed. You know what I mean? Because the majority of the people here are Frenchmen, man. So, anyways.
It's not like they're going to fight back, so they're just passive-aggressive. That's the biggest weapon they've got.
Absolutely. But you know what they're doing now is they're passive-aggressive. That's what they're doing.
Yeah. French people haven't actually been combative since, Napoleon? Ever since
that's acceptable.
Well, the English kicked their ass, eh?
Hey.
It's like you my bitch now.
To be fair, everyone's kicked the French's butt.
Yeah, but yeah.
Well, if you play Europa, Universalis, whatever that game is. Okay, well, the French were powerful in the Middle Ages. A little bit past that, you got Napoleon. After Napoleon, they threw down their rifles and gave up.
After Napoleon, Guderian came in and just in one day took it over.
It was a couple years after Napoleon, I would say. Just a couple.
You got to think the Marines were created, right? American Marines, and they knew they'd never win against us, so why fight?
Man, they had the French Foreign Legion, man.
Yeah, still do.
All right, guys.
Marines are still better.
My friend was in the Canadian Air Force.
You know,
Sorry, my friend was in the
anytime
Canadian Air Force, had a French-Canadian drill instructor. You see those trees out there, side by each? You think you sweat? I make you sweater.
Nice.
That's
throw my
bad, man.
I could. I say, come at me all at once, you bastards. I won big crowd.
Oh, Christ.
Sales are dropping for the book as we speak.
You know what we need to do is
Sorry.
we need to like somehow come up with bad lip reading for the book. Like do the accents totally wrong. I have like a Quebec guy talking like Dave Heath. That would be funny.
I want to get a Marine that sounds like Blackwell Hurd. How's that?
That would never happen.
And that's why we changed the character. All right, guys. Anything else for Brad?
Brad, you're a geek.
He knows that.
Thanks. Okay.
I'm just wondering who picked out
Thank you
your
very much.
picture. The one that is on that advertisement.
Oh, that was how Brad decided he wanted me to show the world to everybody.
It's just that like introspective look he's got in his eye, like, wow, I'm just an artist. Look at me. You know.
No, he looks like he should play for the
And the amount of hair gel to get that
Probably thinking of
curl.
lunch.
You know, he reminded me of a
No
when I saw
album
that.
cover.
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks,
Like
guys.
Cartman, right? When he's telling him to look around when he's doing that Christian rock band to beat Kyle. You know which episode I'm talking about?
No, I don't. I have to find that now.
Yeah, you got to look that up. I could see Cartman telling Brad, all right, now look off in this direction. No, you can't look at the camera. You got to be deep in thought.
What
Like,
is
dude, you're not writing philosophy. You're writing war novels.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
deserve that.
Brad didn't even get to see this. He woke up this morning, goes online, boom, there it was.
Brad, I'm just messing with you, man.
I'm never coming back on this
okay.
show, guys. That's what he's thinking.
Yeah, I can see it. He's going to write like my character in there is a lame loser or some shit.
Probably a Frenchman.
And the
You're
French
just saying
Canadian
what
drill
everybody
instructor.
thinks. It's okay.
Well, okay.
Thank you, guys.
I'm gonna end this one. We've been online an hour and 43 minutes again, and just so you know, coming up, so everyone has some clue what's going on. What do we have? Okay, next week's episode will be different. Okay, we're gonna have Tom Proudfoot here. He's the programmer behind Lock and Load Tactical Digital, and he's going to be showing the game and making some announcements of where we at with that particular title. And the week after that, as soon as I find what I did with it, here we go. We're going to have Sean on here talking about his Squad Level card game, Point Blank. And I'm also going to see if I can get Shane Logan to come on, and he can talk about the artwork behind it because he's the artist behind it. He also did quite a few of the Maurice, what is the other tactical game he does?
Which one?
Shane Logan. Yeah, he's the
old school tactical. Yeah.
Tactical.
And plus, he's Canadian.
Okay.
Ooh.
Well, we're gonna have to. Okay.
Sorry.
Well, we'll have to edge you out of the show that week. Then you get only one Canadian on there to keep the balance.
Oh, wow. Way to invite yourself off the show, dude.
We can't get rid of Bill Murray.
I tell you, I'm going to find that music, that song that they're playing with the chipmunk dancing. I'm going to play that next time.
All right now.
Sure. Buddy, don't worry.
The show always starts off serious and it ends up just being a dumpster fire of stupidity.
Unbelievable. All right, guys.
It's Brad's fault.
Yeah. All right. Start your waving, guys.
Yep.
Start your dancing, dude.
Thank you, guys.
Later, guys.
Thank you.
Well, that is all you have for this episode. Keep gaming, and may God bless you and keep you until next time. On the air is a Lock and Load Publishing production.
Hey, we're still in the air, guys. No. All right.
We're still live.
I'll get rid.
What we need to do is now we need to have like a separate channel for the after show.